Ladies and gentlemen, theys and thems, my name is Chase, and this is the second time I'm recording this because I accidentally ran out of storage on my phone. I'm currently 24, about to be 25 next month, and I was born in the year 2000, so I am a Gen Zer and a Zoomer, if you will. I really like being a part of this generational identity, but there's one thing I want to commentate on it, and is that there's a very steady decline that's been going on in the Western world of people not being religious anymore. I see this as a great problem. I grew up religious. I grew up in the Southern Baptist Convention, and while I am very against that kind of theology, I'm now a Unitarian Universalist, and religion is something that is very important in my life. I won't go over the statistics of the decline of religion. There's plenty of videos and resources. I recommend the Pew Research Center for that. Instead, I will talk more about my experiences with it, the sort of social effects I see from it, and sort of a response to it. I gave a sermon at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham, my home congregation, and I'd like to play a clip of that. So I'll play that now. Something that is very uncomfortable is going to church. Going to church after years of religion causing harm on an individual level, but on a societal level. We see this, unfortunately, very much more now in our nation. Many of us here today, when we were growing up, we were taught that there is only one correct way to think, one correct way to believe, one correct God to pray to, one correct sexuality to express, one correct gender hierarchy, one correct type of friend group to hang out with, and in my case, one correct type of color to marry. And that there is only one infallible, inerrant, sacred text, and to all others who disagree with us, they will forever suffer torment, or at best be annihilated. And personally, I think the annihilationists were at least trying to be nice, but I digress. I grew up SBC, if you can't tell, Southern Baptist Convention. So if you ask any person today, you just walk down the street, you ask any person today, why did you quit going to church, as religion is such a prominent part of the culture here in the Deep South and here in Alabama? I can guarantee most people will tell you they quit going to church because they've either been hurt by religious institutions or people in positions of religious authority. So this might be everyone's experience. Some people just didn't grow up religious. But in the Deep South, in Alabama, where I'm from, it is a pretty common narrative for people to associate religion as something bad, as sort of counter to their fundamental values that, it's okay to be gay, that trans people are people too, that immigrants are not others, but they're our neighbors, that kind of thing. I think it's more of a commentary on the overarching issue within American politics, or United States politics in general. Like, Christianity has been used as a political tool for conservatives to sort of morally justify their poor behavior. But I don't think that that's a good thing. I don't think that religiosity should be seen as something that is directly tied to politics. Of course, people's religion influence the way that they vote because it reflects their values. But I really dislike that there's this notion that because you're religious, you're somehow conservative or against, human rights in some way. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. Another reason that some people are not religious, this was definitely another reason for me leaving the Southern Baptist Convention. I was staying at the Arshavita Gurukulam, founded by Swami Dayananda Saraswati in Pennsylvania. And Swami TV was giving a lecture about why people choose to not be religious. He claimed that by teaching people a very oversimplified, rather childish form of God, that God is this man in the sky with a white beard that casts judgment down to people, and he's very jealous, that's going to turn people away from religion because it's a sort of misunderstanding of divinity. And I completely agree with him. For a people that has this high demand for education, that we have access to pretty much the entire consciousness of written history in our pockets and so much access to information, it only makes sense that if you give a very poor depiction of God, people are going to become atheist. So now I will talk about the consequence of this. Many of my friends are, very hurt or disgusted by religion entirely. Fortunately, some of them have, looked at me and my fellow Unitarian Universalist and have said, "Oh, well, at least that church is good," but the majority of them are, bad in some way. But with that, we have to look at the consequence of people rejecting religion and this big mess. So the most obvious one is we see all these articles about loneliness, the male loneliness epidemic. People are lacking a third place and that kind of thing. Well, when we've all convinced ourselves that religion is bad, we lose one of those third places. We lose one of those sense of communities and the sense of identity and comfort. For me and my fellow Unitarian Universalists at these churches I go to that I'm a part of, it's a mutual understanding that if I get sick, if something happens to me, I know that these people would take care of me, that they would bring me, soup or medicine or whatever I need. And the same thing with them. If somebody in my congregation, something were to happen to them, good or bad, that we're going to be here to support each other. Also, it gives this sense of like routine and meaning, which I think are tied together very loosely, or maybe directly, but that's not the point. The point is like going to church, waking up every Sunday, and maybe you have something, once a week that you do else involved in the church, really creates this sense of belonging and social structure and like identity that really isn't available anywhere else. I mean, it could be available in like hobby groups and sports teams and those sorts of things, but it's divorced of the sacredness of it. Religion and spirituality really provide something to humans that is not accessible in any other medium. And if I can be a little bit humanist about this, it is something very fundamentally human to be involved in a religious community. Pretty much until the modern era, it was rather expected to be involved in a church or a temple or a mosque or whatever. But this isn't to say that I don't think young people have completely disregarded this idea of like asking the big questions of like, why am I here? What is my purpose? Who is God? What is the nature of God? What is the nature of divine? What is this material world? I think that it's very foolish. I've heard some more conservative religious people say that young people are rejecting these sorts of very fundamental things. I disagree with that completely. But I will say is that it is very unfortunate that there is not really a safe, sacred space for young people to really express these ideas, or at least we don't really feel that way. It's really healthy and beneficial to go somewhere to a special place consistently and to have other people who are trying to answer and figure out these same questions as you are and have this sense of sacred community. Another thing on a more societal level is that in the street I grew up in, there was three churches. Two of them have already shut down. The congregation could not sustain a young population, and all the older folk, all the elderly, have now died or are too sick to leave their house and they're in hospice care. The last one, which was the church I was growing up in, has met the same fate. However, they still have like 6 or 7 people who still consistently go to that church, but they're all very elderly. So that church will probably die too within the next 5 years. And that is a great tragedy. Why? Because who is supposed to take care of the orphans? Who is supposed to take care of the elderly? Who is supposed to take care of immigrants or just providing a social structure for the community? Churches are usually responsible and sort of the expected medium for philanthropy and charity in any community. What does a child do when he needs school supplies and his parents are poor and can't afford it? And it's truly by the sheer ignorance and the stubbornness of these churches unwilling to change, unwilling to refine the theology to be more open and accepting to people, to the point where people would actually want to attend and be a part of their community. But so this is just the consequences of their actions. I don't say that it's a good or a bad thing that uh, these churches are dying. I think it's more of a bad thing that the community is now missing something that is very important. And I'm only saying this because I can expect at least one person's going to comment, oh, well, what about the government and social structures? When is the government actually taking care of people in an effective way? We need to have people who are in the community, who have boots on the ground, seeing the problems and seeing what the community actually needs for things to be taken care of. The government's not going to take care of people. So now I will move on. Now that I've made my case on religiosity, I will play a short clip of where I was talking about um, the claiming to be religious. So I'll play that now. Religion does not have to be a bad word, and being religious does not have to be a bad thing either. And I would go as far as to say that it shouldn't. Claiming to be religious should not bring this sense of shame or discomfort. We, as religious liberals, as Unitarian Universalists, need to retake this narrative, to reclaim what it means to be religious. As I said in this sermon, it shouldn't be a bad thing to claim to be religious, because we should really be taking away this stigma that being religious somehow means that you're conservative. I don't claim a particular political affiliation, but if we're talking about this dichotomy between left and right, yes, I believe that Latinos are people too, that we shouldn't be treating people who are trying to enter this country as criminals. That is very wrong. I believe that women should have access to health services and shouldn't be threatened by entering a Planned Parenthood, these sorts of things. And I also claim that I'm religious. And I don't see these two being conflicting at all. It's just really the narrative that is being spouted out. So I will leave my conclusion with this. Being religious means taking care of people. Being religious means loving yourself, loving your family, loving your community, and by community, I mean the entire world. Depending on your position, you may be only able to help the people who are immediately around you. If you're in a larger position, then you have the position of the people who you have an influence over. But it is a matter of what you have control over and doing the best you can. That is what's being religious. Being religious is loving people. So with that, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. I invite you to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Have a great day. Thank you for watching. Mate. Very nice. I miss Argentina. Sometimes extraño a mi gente allá.